is 5 o'clock.
We're live, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. It is 5 o'clock, and welcome to you all to this meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. Obviously, the meeting is being recorded. If you do have a mobile phone, either put it to silent or turn it off altogether. I crave your indulgence because obviously I'm online and not necessarily in the chamber, so hopefully my colleague Don Reid, the Vice Chairman, will point out if anyone in the chamber wishes to speak to me. That would be marvellous. And I'd also like to thank Don for chairing the last meeting in my absence, so thank you very much. If we go to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, I believe we have one. Taylor, is that Councillor Howells?
Yes, Councillor Howells.
Are there any others?
No, Chair. Everyone else is present.
No. Thank you very much. And I just see Councillor Reynolds just joined us, so welcome back to committee. So good to see you again. Item 2 on the agenda is declaration of interest. Nope, there are none. No one showing. Item 3 then, minutes of the last meeting, pages 3 to 8 are for correctness only. Any comments before we move? No, anyone got any comments on the minutes?
No one's got any comments, Gareth.
Thank you very much. So someone prepared to move that they're correct record, please? Show of hands. Thank you, Don. Seconded, Norma. Thank you. Anyone against? No, that's it. Thank you very much. Item 4 then is the recommendation table, pages 9 to 14. Obviously prepared by Taylor. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions on that? Norma?
Chair, can I just raise an issue on the minutes, but I don't think it's in the actions table, and that was paragraph 9.4. SWAP were going to confirm whether limited assurance reports can be issued to the committee when sent to officers. I don't think, at least I don't recall, we've had a response to that.
And presumably we'd need someone from SWAP here to confirm that. Obviously I wasn't at the last meeting. Don, do you know if that was going to come from SWAP?
Sorry, can you repeat that again, Gareth? Sorry.
Yeah, if it's in the minutes about the limited assurance, the question Norma's just raised about the reports presumably coming to members as well as the officers. Do you know whether SWAP were picking that up?
I think SWAP should have picked it up. I think they're not. I don't think they're for schedule for this meeting, but I know they're in with the next meeting.
Okay, perhaps we pick it up with them beforehand and get some clarity on it at the meeting.
Okay.
Yep, Norma, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't want to miss it because I think it's quite important that if we, you know, for us to see those reports, as soon as possible. You know, because it gives us time to study them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Then recommendation table, any questions or comments on that? Nope, okay. Move that we note that. On to the next report is the violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence report. Who's taken this?
Thank you, Chair. I'm here, Tanya Evans.
Hi, Tanya. I can't see on my screen. My apologies.
No problem. Evening, everybody. This report, Chair, has been asked to be presented to committee this evening, and specifically to focus on recommendation 2, which was within the 2024 report to the local authority. In particular to focus on the requirements for members to undertake safeguarding and VAWDASV training. In the background of the report, it just simply lays out where that recommendation came from, and the history behind the report coming back to the local authority in 2024. So it's a very succinct report, and it simply gives an update on progress specifically in relation to recommendation 2 around safeguarding training for members. The update shows that the basic training for safeguarding training for members was delivered earlier on in dates for training were delivered earlier on in 2025, and as a result of that training we now have an 86% uptake of the basic safeguarding training for members. There was a second part to that which focused on the violence against women and domestic abuse and sexual violence training, and the update in relation to that is that, again, training dates have been put on, and the uptake for that is lower than the basic safeguarding training, and it currently stands at 51%. In an effort to support members to increase that uptake, we have put on an additional 2 dates at the end of January and the beginning of February. And also just to say, inform committee members that the local authority has moved to a new improved learning platform called Thinky, and members should be having an email giving them access to this new learning platform this week, and their login details, which hopefully will make it even easier for them to access this training, which is online and can be done quite effectively through that route. However, the 2 dates that I mentioned, we can provide extra support to members to walk them through that new platform if needed. So that was the update in relation to the basic training around safeguarding and violence against women and children. There's also an update in there in relation to the additional Group 6 training, which has been provided, which is additional training for leaders around VAWDASV agenda. And again, there's dates within the report where those training sessions have been delivered, and that the uptake of that additional training stands currently at 53%. And that's the update contained in the report, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tanya. I think the figures give primarily what the committee asked for. I'll open the report out for questions first. Are there any questions?
Councillor Reynolds has got his hand up, Gareth.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I apologise for not being there in person? I hope you got my email earlier today. I've been on an interview panel, and I thought I'd get there in time, but I haven't, so I'm afraid I'm stuck in the car. Just a quick comment, really, about the report. It's not a question as such, just how welcome it is. I remember being on the scrutiny, actually chairing the scrutiny committee when this was asked for, and it really is so important. The one thing I just want to quickly ask about is the Thinky platform. I know in my own job, which is in children's care, we use a similar platform called Myrus, and that allows for automatic prompts, if you like, really, for when certain training modules go out of date, so the user gets those prompts, they know that the module's gone out of date and they need to redo them. It also informs line managers, or in our case, officers, the same thing, so that prompts can be sent to particular staff members or elected members if needed, to say that a certain module needs to be redone. So I just wonder, does Thinky have that same sort of facility where these automatic prompts come up to tell you when a training module needs to be redone?
Thank you for that, John.
So I can answer that, Chair, because
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually on that platform, and it absolutely does send you those email prompts if you haven't completed certain training, and the feedback from the staff since we've gone over to this new platform is extremely positive. It's far more interactive than the old platform, and as you say, it gives you those automatic reminders about what you need to do, and just navigating your way around it is so much easier.
Thank you, Tanya. Are there any other questions?
Don has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I just wanted, before we sort of talk in terms of any numbers, I just wanted to ask a question. Can you confirm that this training for members is not mandatory?
So I'd like to refer to our monitoring officer in respect of that question, because this is a question that has been raised a number of times. So currently there is a divergence of views around this. So, but I am going to refer you to our monitoring officer, if that's okay.
Thanks, Tanya.
No, it's
Mike?
it's not mandatory.
Would you like to expand on that answer, Mike?
I don't know how to expand on that. There's no rule anywhere which mandates that members have to do it.
So, looking at this training, then, I just to put my next question in context, none of the councillors are under a mandatory obligation to do this training, which means that in terms of the numbers that are attending, you're doing a great job. And getting people. There is just one question I wanted to ask. Some of the members who have not attended, are you able to confirm as to whether any of them are in the Cabinet or not in the Cabinet?
I don't have that detail to hand, to be fair. All I can say is that I have reached out individually to each of those members that haven't completed it, offering advice and support to enable them to do so.
Hi, Chair. Councillor Mogford has a hand up as well.
Lovely, thank you. Ray?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just two things. We did raise the question at the last meeting about whether the training was mandatory, and Rhys answered that, as I recall. I want to thank you for putting on two extra training courses, because I'm one of those people that hasn't yet attended, but I've signed up for both of those training courses. I won't be going to both, but I have an intention to go to one or the other. Presumably, at the moment, it's the first one. But as councillors, we do tend to have lots of meetings, and sometimes it is actually very difficult to attend these trainings. And I think this is quite an extended training activity as well. Do you recall the duration of the...
So the basic training, it should take no more than an hour. For the domestic violence training, it is a very straightforward online module which shouldn't take any more than an hour.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Are there any other questions?
None in the chambers, Chair.
That's great. Can I just ask Mike in regards to the question that Don's put? There are two items covered in this report. There's the safeguarding training, where the figures are very good, something like 80-some-odd%, but still 7 members haven't done it. Is that training mandatory or not? In regards to the other training, and obviously we've had that clarified now that it's not mandatory, but the policy which the council's adopted says it is. So clearly there's an issue around the policy, and I don't know whether that's a Newport policy or whether it's a collective policy of all those members of the organisation that deliver this. Is it a multi-agency or multi-council one? So I assume that given it's mandatory in the current policy, if that needs to be amended, because obviously, as was picked up, I think it's been rolled over specifically into the Audit Wales report, where it is a recommendation which says that it's staff and members, it was mandatory. So and I think we just need to get that corrected at some stage moving forward. So can we just get clarity? Is the safeguarding training mandatory or not? And clearly, in regards to the violence against women, domestic abuse, etc., that isn't mandatory. But when is the policy going to be changed, whichever one's adopted?
Yeah, so to take the various parts of that, first, the safeguarding training is not mandatory either. It's a good point about the policy. I mean, the difficulty there is the policy doesn't interrelate with the council's constitution, so as to create that rule for members. It is something that's being looked at. I haven't got any exact timescales around that, but it is something that Tanya and I have discussed, and it will be getting looked at in the near future. I think the other thing to say generally about training for members is, and I think I've mentioned this before, and it's actually referenced in the monitoring officer's comment on the report that we're currently considering. But there is a review of member training going on where the various training that members do is being considered, and what we're looking at there is a categorisation of essential, desirable and useful for the various pieces of training that are offered to members or that members are asked to complete. And obviously that categorisation of essential can be used to highlight training which we as officers recommend it's very, very important that members carry out. So I think it's important to make that point, because I don't want my comments to be misconstrued in some way as me thinking that this training isn't important. It is important, and as part of this review there will be the opportunity to classify training as essential, and I suspect there will be a good case for both the violence against women training and the safeguarding training to end up in that category. So that's what we're looking at doing with that moving forward. Does that answer your question, Chair?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. I think I just get a little bit confused that Council will have approved the policy for violence against women, domestic abuse, etc., and that would be within that policy. So therefore, it would follow, I would hope, that the Constitution should have been amended to address that issue. Otherwise, I assume the Council wouldn't have adopted that policy. But I'm pleased to hear that that's all going to be looked at in the future, because, as you quite rightly say, a lot of this is interlinked, and I believe it's interlinked with the Code of Conduct as well, because obviously there are numerous issues in the Code where you have to treat people with respect, irrespective of gender, etc., etc. So I think these are key areas which really need to be picked up going forward. So thanks for that, Mike. Did I see Ray?
Yes, Chair. Sorry to be a bit pernickety, but what does essential mean, and compare and contrast with mandatory?
I haven't got a dictionary in front of me, Councillor Mogford, but it would be...
Could I rephrase it then?
And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean, it's the dictionary definitions there as well. Mandatory means you must do this and there will be a consequence if you don't do it. Essential means it's very highly important that you do this.
But if you don't, you don't. And there's no consequence. I think that's what we discussed last meeting about consequences. There are no consequences for not doing it.
Ultimately, yeah, and I mean this is getting to the nub of the issue with the point that the Chair just made, that the policy mandates the training, but there is no sanction in the Code of Conduct for not carrying out that training. So that's the situation that we face.
Are there any other questions?
I've got my hand up, Gareth.
Thank you, Don.
It's a question for you, actually. I'm just wondering, because this looks like a whole to me, and I know that, as Mike has said, they're going to be looking at it, but I just wonder if we as a committee, we should be saying, look, we strongly recommend that this gets looked at, and because I think things like safeguarding should be mandatory. And, you know, and I would think that would be a good governance and good assurance. And at the moment, it seems like it's a hole. So I'm just wondering whether we as a committee should, you know, add our weight to what Mike's already and what Tanya are looking at in the background and say, yeah, I think this should get looked at pretty quick.
Yeah, Don, and I'm with you there. And if by magic, I've proposed, or I have some written proposals, put some additional recommendations to the committee for consideration at the end, because, sorry, I think what concerns me is the safeguarding training, great. The majority of members have achieved that and undertaken it, which is really good news. However, 7 members still haven't undertaken that safeguarding training, which obviously is of concern. However, in regards to the violence against women domestic abuse training, the group 1, 25 councillors haven't done the training. Now, you know, I'm pleased to see Ray's, you know, agreed to say, look, you know, yeah, it takes some time to do, and, you know, if I can get the time, I will do it, and I put my name down. It's great to see that, is it this Thinky online training module is available, and hopefully that will address some of these issues going forward. But again, it's the whole issue about, you know, is it mandatory or discretionary? The Group 6 training, again, we've only got 24 members haven't undertaken the Group 6 training, which again, I think went down to your point about cabinet or those in leadership positions. And I like you, is quite concerned, you know, it's great to say all the staff have to do it because it is mandatory for some of the staff, etc., but the members don't. So what I was going to propose is, I've got some recommendations if people are happy to listen to them. Hopefully they would strengthen and hopefully endorse what Mike is doing with his team and with Tanya in regards to raising this issue about this training. So if there are no other comments, then you know, I'll read those out, which I think are very pertinent.
Hi, Chair. There's no other hands up in the room. I can't see any online.
Okay, what I was going to suggest is on the recommendations is recommendation 1 is that we note the contents of the report. Number 2, the council consider what action, if any, be taken against those councillors who have failed to attend either the safeguarding training and or the Group 1 or Group 6 violence against women subject training. Number 3, the council consider referring the issue of how to address future training to the Democratic Services Committee, who have got responsibility for looking at training and members, and to the Standards Committee, who have got an issue in regards to looking at training for members and adhering to the Code of Conduct for further investigation. And a final one, that the WLGA be approached by the council to ensure that a training package for violence against women, domestic abuse, etc., and safeguarding be included in the induction training package for all members elected in 2027. So, whilst obviously they can work hard to try and get the current members, given that the election's only going to be about whatever it is, 15 months away, that it be introduced by the WLGA as an integral part of the training. I don't know whether anyone would want to second me for those, but that's what the proposals, the recommendation I will put to committee for consideration.
Chair, I'll happily second your those, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether any officers got any comments on that, but that's the recommendation.
Mike's got his hand up, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. And just a couple of points on that to advise the committee. Really, first, you know, a lot of that's achievable. I mean, certainly the point about the induction training we can take on board. We will be looking at the induction training through the course of this year in readiness for the for the local government election, which is scheduled for May 2027. But just a couple of points on that. I mean, first, with regard to considering sanctions, I think, I mean, that's covered off in the in the discussion I've just had with Councillor Mogford, in that there isn't really any sanction we can impose at present. What can be done is we can look at putting in place a mechanism whereby, and I'm not saying this will be necessarily straightforward, but I mean there's a recommendation that you could make a recommendation that the council could consider setting up some sort of system that does have more teeth as regards this training, but I don't think it's possible to do anything retrospectively on that. The second point, as regards member training, is I think it's just worth being clear, the committee being clear about where this recommendation is going to. Member training actually sits within the cabinet member portfolio of the deputy leader, so my advice would be that would be the best place for your recommendation in the first instance.
Yeah, obviously I hear what you're saying, Mike. I think the recommendations as put will, I would say, still stand, because Democratic Services Committee has got a specific responsibility for training the members. But I hear what you say about whether the council intends to do anything. As I said, the recommendations phrase to consider what action, if any. Obviously, it's a matter for the group leaders to take any action they may wish to take, or not do anything at all. But I think, picking up Don's point, I would hope that the public would see that whilst the staff are being trained, that the elected members are being similarly trained in regards to this issue, and therefore, there does need to be some spotlight put on it. And again, if and when it goes to council, you can make the same points. But I think as an assurance mechanism for us, and again, I stand to be corrected by the members of the committee, we just need to ensure that the profile of this is raised, and it's given good due regard in regards to what's going forward. So I'll leave my recommendations as they are, and obviously they have been seconded. I don't know whether anyone wishes to make any amendments.
Chair.
No?
I see no people with their hands up to make amendments.
Okay, so I don't know whether anyone wants me to read them out again, but if not, can I put that to the committee that the 4 recommendations that I've read out be approved? Obviously, it's been moved and it's been seconded. Everyone in favour? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support on that. Item 6 then is the Governance and Audit Committee briefing note on membership of joint committees. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. The note is in the form of an advice note rather than a report, and hopefully all of the committee have had the opportunity to consider that. I suppose I would say in preparing this report, there are a large number of bodies which perhaps purport or appear to be joint committees. Relatively few of those are genuinely joint committees in the legal sense of a joint committee as defined in the Local Government Act. And the two main ones, 3 if you count the South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee, but the 2 main ones are the Gwent Cremation Corporate Joint Committee and the Gwent Archives Corporate Joint Committee. And the note focuses on the general principles of the governance of each. But the key thrust, and I suppose in terms of answering the question that you raised last year, Chair, is that the statutory purpose of a joint committee is to discharge a council function. So although that function is being discharged by a joint committee, it is still a function of the council. it still falls under the purview of a cabinet member. It still falls within the remit of a head of service, and so it remains incumbent on the council through those officers and members to ensure that whatever function is being discharged by the Joint Committee is being discharged adequately, and to ensure that arrangement is monitored. And it's also within the remit of scrutiny committees at this council to monitor and question and I suppose satisfy themselves that those functions are being satisfied by the Joint Committee. So that's how it works, and I've concluded the note by indicating that the role of this committee is to ensure that all of those moving parts are operating in harmony, and that monitoring and scrutineering is taking place. So it's a fairly short report, it's a fairly short note, but my hope is that answers the question that you raise. Obviously, if the committee was seeking a deeper dive into anything, then that's something that the relevant officers could have a look at putting together a report on. But I've focused on answering your question in principle, Chair. So yeah, happy to take any questions on that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. Are there any other questions? Norma?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether it's so much a question as a comment, really. When I read this paper, I thought, right, really interesting. It's good to get the background, etc., etc. But actually, the question I had after reading it was, where does this take the committee? Because to me, it was more a training issue. I think it's good for us to know about the various committees, how that fits into our work, but it's sort of left us in the air. What do we do with this information, other than hold it in our heads as background, really? I think that was my question. I just thought, what's the purpose of it?
Is that a question for me?
Well, I think it is a question, isn't it? It's come to the committee. I've read the paper. I thought it was a good paper. You know, it certainly increased my knowledge, or reaffirmed some of my knowledge, but increased my knowledge. But then, as a committee, I wasn't sure where the purpose then, you know, other than educating us.
Well, the purpose is to address the question that the Chair raised on the 31st of July last year, and you know, there was a query about how corporate joint committees are monitored, and I was asked to provide some clarity to the committee on that, so that's what I've done. I mean, in terms of where you go forward with it, it's obviously a matter for this committee in determining its forward work programme, what it would like to consider, and if that prompts an issue that this committee would like to delve into more, then that's something that the committee can resolve to do.
Yeah, can I ask, are there any other questions? Paul?
Don had his
I
hand
think
up.
Don wants to come in now, Chair.
Don?
No, I was actually going to let you come in, Gareth, okay?
Yeah, okay. I think the issue is, and I hear what Norma says, firstly, thank you, Mike, for preparing the briefing note. For me, it raises some more issues than it answered. And I think the starting point, as you quite rightly say, is what is a joint committee, and you've set that out quite clearly in the report. But what I'm concerned about is that there's a mention about what there are other arrangements, and it would be interesting, I'd be interested to know what other arrangements are out there which the council is aware of, and where are they reporting to. So that's the first thing, and whether they're joint committees or not is irrelevant. So where are they reporting, who's picking it up, and who's getting the assurance that they're delivering what they need to deliver. In regards to the joint committees, which, as you quite rightly say, is the crematorium and the Archives Committee. I think the Cardiff Capital Region now, which is a statutory issue, is another issue, and it's not a joint committee because it's been set up by legislation. But for me, and I hear again what you say in regards to the officers who deal with these issues in archives and crems, and they lay within a cabinet member. But where are the minutes of these meetings reported to? So are they just reported to the cabinet member, or are they reported to the head of service? And if they are, why aren't they reported to the council or the cabinet, given that the function has been delegated to a joint committee? So the whole issue in reality is that some of these things go on without the back bench members knowing anything about them, because they don't see the minutes. There's very little transparency about it, and I don't know whether, if I look on the council website, which I should have done but I didn't, whether these minutes are on the council's website. And if there is an issue about a decision that's made at any of the joint committees, is there an opportunity for the members to call them in? Because obviously the council fund, I should imagine, these bodies, unless the crematorium is cost neutral and actually makes a profit. I'm not sure because I haven't checked. But it's the issue, Mike, about where the minutes of the meeting go. Because if they're only going to the cabinet member, who presumably discusses it, possibly a cabinet, there should be a reference in the cabinet minutes somewhere that this issue's been discussed. But where do the other members of the authority see what is being done and what is being discussed at these meetings, given it's a function of the council, even though it's been delegated somewhere else? So that's the real issue for me. It's not just for Newport, it's for most authorities in Wales. They don't pick them up. And again, central, the Joint Committee for the City Region is another issue. Those minutes will go somewhere, but presumably you can pick them up on the City Deal website. You've got the Education Consortium, if that still exists. I don't know whether it still exists, but it's a limited company, but Newport pays into that. So it's all those issues about openness and transparency, where members of the public, or elected members more importantly, don't see what's going on. So that's the issue for me. And as I said, Mike, what other arrangements are there? What are the governance arrangements for those matters, and is it open and transparent?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, just a few things in there. I mean, first, the Greater Gwent Cremation Joint Committee is hosted by this council. It meets, I think, quarterly. The meetings are open to the public and they're webcast on this council's website, and they're published on this council's website along with all of the other committee and cabinet and council minutes. So they're available, they're published. I mean, in terms of reporting them, I don't know that you'd report the minutes of a meeting, but they are published and the meetings are available to watch online. So that satisfies the transparency around that, I would suggest. As regards the Archives Committee, one would assume that there is a similar arrangement in place at the council that hosts that. That's not something that I've checked. I think there was a point about scrutiny. I mean, in my introduction to the report, scrutiny can call these things in, and that's, I'm not sure that it's been done recently, but it's certainly within the power of a scrutiny committee to look at the discharge of that function. So that mechanism is there.
Are they aware of the two joint committees, though, Mike?
Well, that I don't know.
And that's the crux, see?
Oh, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mike, can I make a point? I'm not trying to be smart here in any shape or form. We've just gone through this in the Vale Council, and you can look at it. We've agreed that all the minutes will either go to Cabinet now or Council on a sort of quarterly basis or a 6-monthly basis. So if anyone's interested whatsoever, they can look at them, etc., etc. So the public can see them, the elected representatives can see them, etc., etc. It's only that issue. You know, if I doubt, and I'm not being unkind, I doubt if some of the councillors are aware of the joint committees in reality, unless they sit on them. They will be aware of them, hopefully, that they see they're being funded through the accounts, etc., etc. But it's just making sure that if, I don't know, if the crematorium, and this is just an example, if the crematorium are making a huge profit, which they may or may not be, is there a profit share agreement after they retain some money, and does it then get distributed between the constituent councils? You know, what are the sort of arrangements there? And it's just points like that. So that's all I'm trying to get at in regards to these issues, is that for us as a committee, we need to make sure the assurance mechanism is in place, that people are aware, the elected representatives are aware, and the public can be made aware of these issues. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just to address that, the cremation committee is funded jointly by the Gwent local authorities. There is a profit share agreement in place as well, and the monies are divided proportionate to the population, or the latest available population information for each Gwent local authority, and that data is updated regularly. So that there is an agreement in place in order to enable the sharing of the surplus. I mean, I just wanted to come back to the point as well about other committees. I mean, the reason I've focused on these two committees is because they are the ones that are discharging council functions. A lot of the others that came up when I looked into this are ones that are simply operating in an advisory capacity and have no decision-making power whatsoever. So therefore, I'm not too sure what there is to scrutinise, because when they operate in an advisory capacity, the decision is made within this council and would feed into the scrutiny process in the usual way. And I mean, just to reiterate, in terms of public scrutiny and public visibility, the minutes and the webcasts of the meetings of the Gwent Cremation Committee are published on the council's website, and in fact I'm looking at them now. So I don't know how it's possible to be more transparent than
that. Chair, you're on mute.
Sorry, I turned you off because I got a cough. Yeah, okay. I think we're not going to go much further on here. Is it possible, Mike, that someone could just do a very short report saying what these other arrangements are, and in regards to, if you say the Archives Committee or and even the CREM, I hear what you say, they're on the council's website, but are they reported to the council? That's the question I posed. And just a short report, just updating us to, you know, whether there could be any consideration that the minutes be actually referred to the council, given that they're, you know, even though they're hosting the joint committee, but the council itself also got a responsibility by way of that, its delegation. So I'm just wondering whether you can do a short report for that, not for next committee, but you know, when you can get time to get the information together.
Yeah, I'll have a look at putting something together, Chair, but as I say, it's already something that I've looked into. Those are the committees that have got decision-making power and are discharging functions on behalf of the council. The remainder are advisory committees with no decision-making power. So I'm not sure what governance implications that there are there. And in terms of reporting minutes to the cabinet, if that's what's being suggested, we can certainly take a recommendation to the cabinet with regard to that, if that's a recommendation that the committee wants to make. Yes.
Yeah, no, that'd be okay. Whether it go to cabinet or council is another issue, but again, if it's a cabinet function or whatever. But I think that would be a little bit more present. John, is that you, John?
It is, Chair.
From 2,000 miles away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Mike has actually just partly covered what I was going to suggest anyway. But if I've understood the debate correctly, there seems to be two issues here. One is the transparency of the meetings themselves. So I think Mike's covered that really well in the fact that the meetings are open to the public and the minutes are published. So I think that does cover the transparency. In terms of scrutiny, obviously the joint committees can be scrutinised via the cabinet members and the heads of service at the Partnership Scrutiny Committee. That's the way I understand it. Or the joint committees could be called to scrutiny themselves. I'm just wondering whether, is it worth possibly making a recommendation to send a recommendation to the chair of partnerships and the relevant cabinet member, just to ensure that those joint committees have the opportunity to come to scrutiny, either in person or via the cabinet member and heads of service, just to ensure that that scrutiny, that transparency is taken care of. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. Might I suggest, let's just wait for a little bit more in-depth report from Mike on these issues. And then once we've received that, then we can make the relevant recommendations that they go wherever they need to go. And I think Mike made the point, if scrutiny were aware of it, then maybe they'd look at it. But if they're not aware of it, then they may not be looking at it. And I think the point you made, Mike, it'd be interesting to know whether they've ever looked at it in any recent times. So can I suggest, Mike, if you can just draft the recommendation, you just draft another report going into whatever other arrangements there are and the joint committees in a little bit more detail, and then we can pick it up at the next, whenever you can do it. I'm not suggesting do it by March, but whenever you can get time to do it.
Can we be specific about what's required in that report then, Chair, please? Because I'm not 100% clear on what you're asking for, and I want to make sure that I bring back something that's of value to the committee if I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I think firstly we need to know what other arrangements there are, whether they're advisory groups or whatever. It would be just interesting to know what they are. I hear what you say about whether they've got any decision-making powers or whatever. But I think it would be interesting to know what they are and what their areas' responsibilities are and what their powers are if they're outside the delegation provisions. The joint committee provisions. The issue around the CREM and the Archives Committee, that whilst they're the CREM seems straightforward, it's published on the website, but whether they should be published by the go to the council in any event, because the function's been delegated to the joint committee. The archives is a similar, where is that going, and should that actually go to the council? And then, as you say, you've got the other issues about the capital region committee now, where those are reported. I presume they go to the cabinet because the leader sits on it, together with the chief exec on some other bits and pieces. And I should imagine you'd pick up, is it the Education Consortium or anything else that's out there?
I'll see what I can do, Chair.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much. So, obviously, if we just do a quick recommendation, we note Mike's note and we await a further update report. Someone prepared to move, please?
Gareth, before we move it, could I just make a comment, please?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I just wanted to pick up that I was like with Norma when this briefing note came through. I didn't know what it was for, and I'd forgotten about your question from the 31st of July, Gareth. So I'm just wondering if when a briefing note's being done as to whether if it's in response to a question, that in the preamble the actual question is there, because I couldn't see where there was a preamble which told us what the report was answering. So I was in a situation with Norma. I wasn't actually understanding it, and I just think it would help us as a committee understand the context and be able to put it together quickly. So that was my comment.
Yeah, thank you for that, Don. Obviously, if anyone else does a briefing note in the future, they could pick it up from the action log. Okay, someone prepared to move recommendations that we note and we await the further report? Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Don. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you. Item 7, Capital Strategy and Treasury Management Strategy 26-27. Is that Myron or Laura?
That's me, thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
So the report that's presented to the committee is the draft Capital and Treasury Management Strategies for 26-27. The committee is asked for their views and to provide any feedback before this report is then taken to Cabinet and Council. So the strategy is just a rollover from the previous strategy in 25-26 and just presents an incremental change from the previous strategy. The overall messaging still remains the same. So the report details the 5-year rolling capital programme as well as the various prudential indicators which we are required to get approved by full Cabinet, such as the authorised limit and the operational boundary for debt. So the capital and treasury management strategies of the Council are based on a number of assumptions which drives the capital financing requirement and its overall need to borrow. These assumptions are based on the expected use of the capital's cashback reserves, the current capital project and the forecast profile of those projects which are funded by borrowing, including any slippage forecasts, and these have been updated as per the last forecast in November 25, which has been reported to Cabinet. So as you will see from the report, the current assumptions indicate that to continue with the current programme at the forecast profile, the use of the reserves as per the latest forecast and the capital financing costs will start to exceed the available budget in 28-29. This will increase then year on year until 30-31 before starting to fall again as previous schemes have been paid off. So the report is saying that investment will be required in the future in order to be able to afford the current capital programme. So there is a number of things that could significantly change these figures, such as interest rates changes, the amount of slippage, the forecast use of reserve, and the profile of some of these schemes. So the strategy the strategy showed the potential impact of these based on the assumptions at the time of writing the report, although we have tried to include any likely changes. It's probably worth mentioning that following the final settlement which we received yesterday, there is a potential that these figures will change in the report before going to Cabinet. The Treasury Management Strategy then details the Council's borrowing and investment strategies and details our potential indicators, which are again similar to those that were as part of the strategy for 25-26, but it's been updated in line with this year's figures. And the MRP strategy is also included within the report, but there are no changes to that. That remains the same as within the 25-26 strategy. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the comprehensive report. Are there any questions? Norma?
Thank you, Chair, and I agree, it's a very good, clear report. I just have a couple of minor points on the paper, and then I had some comments on the draft capital strategy, if that's okay. A really petty one, first of all. I think I found an arithmetical error on paragraph 7 in the, and it's really minor, but I think just to make sure it's correct. Am I not right? On paragraph 7, you've got, in the table, we've got projected capital financing costs, 16,141. Shouldn't that be 16,140? it's really minor. Just take that away. But I think
it's
just to show I do add up.
It's down to roundings, but yes, I can see how it looks a bit odd.
Yeah. Okay. And my question in regards to the paper really was, and I apologise, so I should have cross-referenced this to the risk management stuff that we have on the agenda. But have we assessed the risk of the revenue budget being insufficient to meet interest costs? Or does it feature anywhere in risk registers?
I might have to refer that to Myriam, sorry.
Because, I picked up that could be a risk.
Yeah, so we have built this strategy based on current interest rates, which are predicted to reduce a bit next year. Clearly, the capital programme is a long-term commitment, and there has to be a commitment to fund the capital financing budget as required, and that's where the prudential scheme around affordability, sustainability comes in, and that is an assessment, as opposed to an absolute guarantee. Because ask me today what our funding position is going to be in 5 years' time, I couldn't tell you. Nobody could. So therefore, that's where the prudence comes into building these plans. So we have a prudent plan here which doesn't overextend the current programme. And, we will need to manage these issues as they arise. We are, I can't guarantee this, we are likely to be at the peak of the interest rates, scenarios at the moment. Our interest rates are not based on the Bank of England rates on its own. Geopolitical and other UK, issues coming to these rates. We pay the same rates as the UK government pays on its own borrowing. So, but even they are at a peak at this point. So it's a prudent plan at this stage, and yes, we will need to commit to funding this budget over the next 5 years to afford the current programme. So that is a pre-commitment on the budget.
Thank you, Marion. I think that's fine. I mean, I picked it up and I thought, should this be a risk? But what you're saying, you can't really foresee that far into the future, and you keep it, you monitor it, and you keep a watch on it. That's fine. If I could just turn, and these are just some suggestions for the draft capital strategy. In the executive summary, in the fourth paragraph, I think, sorry, I've got to take my glasses off for this. It says the strategy highlights the key risks and recommendations. And when I was reading the text, I thought, are these actual recommendations? And I just wondered whether they were just the key challenges. So I'm just putting that out for you just to review. And then in the governance section, there was no mention of the Governance and Audit Committee, and I wondered whether there should be. I just leave that with you to consider. And then we talk about a framework, and when I was looking at it as a framework, I thought, is this a framework or is this a set of principles? So that's another suggestion. And my final point on the draft strategy, which raised a bit of concern for me, we talked about commercialisation, and we're talking about a 2019 strategy. And I thought, my gosh, we're in 2026 now. How up to date is this strategy? And I wondered whether there could be more information about that commercialisation strategy actually in the draft capital strategy, because it's quite an important issue.
I can review that before it gets sent to Cabinet. Yeah, I'll have a look.
I'm not worried about sort of seeing the draft strategy again. I'm just giving you suggestions which I think could possibly help improve it. But I think my biggest concern out of all of that was this commercialisation strategy. You know, I was a bit concerned about we're now in 2026 and we talk about a strategy of 2019. And my other concern was, should we have more information about it?
Okay, so I mean, that is the latest strategy we have. So factually, this is correct. But I take your point, and I think that's something that we can take a look at, and we can come back to you on. Yeah.
Sorry, anything else, Norma?
No, Chair, that's fine for me. John wants to come in now, thanks.
John.
Laura, thanks for the report, and thank you for including the pictures. I really enjoyed them, and it makes it real clear for understanding. So all joking aside, they really do help. The question I wanted to ask was about the MRP. Are there any plans to change the way the MRP is calculated and applied?
None at the moment.
Okay. If there were any plans to change the MRP, would we as a committee be told about it?
Yes, we would take that to you first for a recommendation. But at the moment, whilst there has been some changes in the England MRP, it doesn't affect the calculation of that.
Right.
So we are compliant with that recommendation and that policy, and there's no plans on changing that.
Okay.
And if it is, like I said, we would bring this to you first.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Don. Are there any other questions? I can't see any. Any comments? Nope. Okay, if we go to the recommendations, then the recommendations are, I suggest we say, hang on, we are, to note the comments on the capital strategy, Appendix 2, including the draft capital programme within it, shown at Appendix 1, and the borrowing requirements needed to deliver the new programme. So that the comments be noted on that. That the comments be noted on the Treasury Management Strategy, the Treasury Management Indicators, the Investment Strategy, and the minimum revenue provision. And finally, we note the increase in debt and corresponding revenue costs of this in delivering the capital programme and the implementations of this over both the short and medium and long term. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Norma. Anyone against? Nope, that's it. That's carried. Thank you very much. Just get quite quickly, sorry. Next item on the agenda. If I can get through. Apologies for this. Is the go?
It's the Audit Wales.
Thanks, Tom. Trying to get my front screen. Yep, the Audit Wales report. So, Bethan, are you doing this, or?
Chair, I'll be leading this, Chair, and then I'll hand over to Bethan. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So, for the committee, this report is the summary of the Audit Wales and regulatory bodies reviews completed in the last 6 months from July to December 2025. I'm going to give a brief overview in terms of what the report shows and what is included in the report. I'll then hand over to Bethan, who will just explain some of the work that Audit Wales have done in the last 6 months in relation to some of the audits completed at the Council. So, in summary, Audit Wales have completed 2 local reviews at Newport City Council, one being the review of our scrutiny arrangements and the other one being the arrangements of our Environment and Public Protection Service Area, which is part of the Environment and Sustainability Directorate. In addition to that, they also did a report on the Corporate Joint Committee, which is for information report for the committee. That report was directly sent to the Corporate Joint Committee at Cardiff CCCR. In relation to the other regulators, there were no CIW reports released in the last 6 months. However, they did do one inspection report on the South East Wales Adoption Service and also 5 inspections of adult and children's services as well. In relation to Estin, they published 5 thematic reports, and all of those reports are included in the report as well, and 4 school inspections as well. And then in addition to that, we provided the committee with an update in terms of the recommendations which were ongoing in the last update, which was provided back in July as well. So all the updates in terms of the recommendations from all of the regulators are included. It is worth noting that the Food Standards Agency report will be coming back to this committee in March in terms of the updates on those recommendations as well. So I'll just hand over to Bethan to explain some of the work done around the scrutiny arrangements and ENPP. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, so as Paul has said, there's 2 local reports in front of you today, Chair. I'll take them both as read. One on Environment Public Protection Service Review. You'll see that audit resulted in 3 recommendations, all of which have had responses are included in the pack for information. We also did a piece of local work on scrutiny arrangements, which included a follow-up on progress from a previous scrutiny report, which we'd done in 2018. Again, that resulted in 3 recommendations with responses included in the pack as well. I think it's fair to say that both reports were positive reports. You know, there are recommendations, but we didn't find any fundamental issues which needed addressing. It was more to do with taking areas of work and adding to them. You'll see that there are a couple of recommendations. I think it's 3 on both of those reviews are fairly similar around evaluating impact and assessing impact of what's been achieved in both of the services. Rachel is with me today, who undertook the scrutiny arrangements audit, if anybody's got any further detailed questions.
No, I think that the only questions I had in regards to scrutiny arrangements were the timescales which are set out, which are January 27 and the final one, which is 31st of December 28, which is 3 years, nearly, well, just under 3 years. The comment on that was to make sure that whatever's put in place can be put in place ready for the next local government elections. So if there's a review of the scrutiny arrangements, can we, if possible, put it in place before the next administration's in place, so that they're up and running and ready to work, rather than trying to do it whilst there are new councils in place, etc., etc. That's the only comment I had on that. I didn't know whether what your colleague thought on that.
You're happy to come in on that, Chair. I think when putting those recommendations to the council and having those responses back, we were aware that the council has an additional piece of work planned in a self-assessment of its scrutiny function. I think, as Bethan said to you, it's not that we've pointed out fundamental issues with the scrutiny function. It is about building on the foundation that you've got in place, and some of those areas that we've made recommendations about, for example, public engagement in scrutiny, are not straightforward issues to address. It's an issue that many local authorities have found challenging. So I think the timescales, I mean, your officers will be able to tell you in more detail about why they've chosen those timescales. From our point of view, that reflects the piece of work, the work that is still yet to be done in the council, and we're content with them, essentially.
Lovely, thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Bethan. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it for me. As Paul said, the other report on CJCs is there for information, but given the conversation which has taken place already, Chair, might be a useful read for committee members. Got some bits and pieces around performance management in there. But I'm happy to take any other questions that anybody has at this point.
Thank you, Bethan. Are there any questions? Hello, I can see you.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure whether you could see me on the screen or not. To be honest, I did have some questions, but I think they're probably better directed towards the heads of service rather than the Audit Committee members. So if I could, I'd just make a couple of comments, really, rather than questions. The first one revolves around the public involvement with scrutiny. And again, going back to when I was a chair myself, this is something that I've advocated for quite a long time, and it's something I really do want to see improved. So I'm sure action is being taken on this. I just hope it is taken further forward. Public involvement in scrutiny, to me, is vital. That's why we're there, is to scrutinise the important decisions being made by Council and make them public. So I think publicising the meetings more, providing the live links to the public so they can engage more and see what's going on. I think not only makes things more transparent, it would just make the trust in what's going on in politics in general, the public trust, it would certainly help with that if people could see and take part and feel like they're involved in scrutiny meetings. So I just wanted to make that comment. Similarly with planning, there's a recommendation in planning about a review of times allowed for various speakers. And again, it's a point I've raised previously. There is a huge discrepancy in the time allowed for speakers speaking either for a planning application, against the planning application, or for members to speak, again, for or against. There is a big discrepancy there. I think it does need to be looked at. So I know those recommendations have been made. I did intend to ask some questions about those recommendations, but as I say, I'll delay those questions until a more appropriate forum. Thank you, Chair.
You're on mute,
Okay,
Gareth, and Norma has a question.
Sorry, my apologies, John. I did see you. You're just so small on my screen. I just see a little hand raising. So thank you for that. Are there any other any questions?
Gareth, could I come in to follow up on what Councillor Reynolds said? Yes, please, if I may. And I think I agree with everything that Councillor Reynolds said there. I mean, it's good to hear that the reports on environment and public protection and scrutiny arrangements were seen as positive reports. I think that's good news for the committee. But one of the things that worried me, and it is a matter really for heads of service rather than Audit Wales, is that if I take the Environment and Public Protection Services recommendations, and I understand that Audit Wales have had a dialogue with staff, but I'm still questioning it, for recommendations 1, 2 and 3, to me, it is essential that these are done before the start of the financial year, because it's all about the planning and the delivery. And I don't see any reason why those couldn't be done within 3 months, but there may be good reason, but that's my view. On scrutiny arrangements, I looked at recommendation 1, and I thought 12 months to complete is an awful long time for that recommendation. And I also thought the same for recommendation 2. And then I got to recommendation 3, and it was 2 years to complete. And the question that I had there, what are the reasons? Because it's not really clear. And if I move on to the Audit Wales tracker, on temporary accommodation, we need a new completion date for recommendation 3. On safeguarding, recommendation 2 hasn't got a completion date, and I don't think recommendation 3 has. And then if we turn to planning services, on recommendation 5, the management response does not address the various elements contained in the recommendation. And I think a completion date of 2028, quite honestly, I think is unacceptable. 2 years.
I think, Norma, some of the questions will need to be raised through Paul back to the directorates in regards to these areas. They're not specifically for Audit Wales, but they are issues. Obviously, they're the management responses in regards to recommendations. So lots of the questions you've posed there need to go back to the relevant heads of service. And you know, I'd endorse what you say about some of the timescales are enormous. But again, it's knowing what's behind that date is essential for me as to why we're doing that. But just for Rachel and Bethel, I don't know whether they can assist in regards to what John said, public engagement in scrutiny. Obviously, you inspect all 22 authorities in Wales. And I'm just wondering, are there any areas of good practice out there where councils actually, you know, regularly recruit members of the public to sit on scrutiny committees to do exactly what John said, even though they've got no voting rights, but they're there to be an integral part of that committee to scrutinise what's going on within the council. And I'm just wondering, is there any sort of guidance, is there a practice note or anything like that that Audit Wales have got that could assist the council?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think this particular piece of work we didn't do in all 22 local authorities. We did a 2018-19 piece of work which was in all 22. That said, we have done reviews of scrutiny arrangements in various councils in the last few years. All of those reports are available on our website for you to look at, and you can see there what we've said. And public engagement will have been a factor in all of those reports. I think arrangements do vary. We do have a discussion paper also, which again is available on our website, I believe, which was created after the 2018-19 work, which is around 6 themes to help make scrutiny fit for the future. Public engagement is one of the areas that discusses. Yeah, in terms of what's happening on the ground, arrangements vary in councils. Some the councils do have arrangements where they co-opt members onto scrutiny committees. But, you know, to be brutally frank with you, councillors, there is no, I cannot point you to go and have a look at what this council is doing because they've cracked it. It is, I think it is an area that most councils have found challenging.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rachel. Obviously, it's work in progress, and you know, we do wonderful things in Wales, don't we? We try to do the same thing 22 different times. But if there is a way to point, that'd be great. Before we come in, Bethan, can I ask John to come in?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick point of clarification, really. When I mentioned about public's involvement in scrutiny, I wasn't advocating for public members or the members of the public to become members of scrutiny committees themselves. I don't know what the logistics or the legality of that is, to be honest. My point really was to get to raise public awareness, so they're more aware that the meetings are taking place. They are public meetings which they're entitled to attend. There is a public gallery in the scrutiny rooms where they can sit and watch the meeting without actually taking part. And there is a live feed as well that they could log into online. But I don't think the awareness is there, to be honest. Most people don't even know these things exist. So that was my point, really, rather than bringing members in from the public to become scrutiny members. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
No, thank you for that clarification, John. I understand that now. Bethan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the paper which Rachel has referred to, which was our 6 themes for fit for the future scrutiny, I've posted in the chat so you can have a look at it. One thing I will say about that is that it was pre-COVID, so things are slightly different now. I agree with Rachel that there's not necessarily one group or organisation we would direct you to, because scrutiny can be done in all different types of ways in all different local authorities, and they have different topics within their remit, within their terms of reference of scrutiny committees as well. Taking a point that Councillor just made, sometimes co-opting people onto scrutiny is good in that it raises awareness, but the issue of public involvement, I think, potentially is a comms issue as well. I mean, I think the word scrutiny itself is not overly accessible and helpful to general members of the public, when in fact a lot of the issues which scrutiny look at are really relevant and really interesting to the public if they knew about it. So I agree that it is difficult to get that public engagement and people involved. I think being virtual does help in that people can just log on and have a look, but I think some of it is around the sort of advertising and understanding and demystifying what scrutiny is there for as well.
Thanks for that clarity.
Gareth, Paul would like to come in.
Yeah, I was just going to invite Paul in because obviously Norma posed quite a lot of questions, Paul, that you may need to pick up with the relevant heads of service and director.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Barry. Yeah, so with the points which you just raised then in terms of the tracker, we will go back to the heads of service and just clarify with them and make sure that they're clear in terms of the timescales that are being presented back to the committee. In addition to that, just on the environment and public protection in terms of because we're involved in kind of supporting the service areas with their service plans, etc. So we will be taking that back to the service areas because it's not just for environment and public protection, there's something there for all service areas to consider as well. So we will be going back to all the heads of service to reflect and have a look at that in a little bit more detail in terms of how we can better support them to meet those recommendations raised by Audit Wales. But by all means, we will go back to the heads of service to make sure that we're clear in terms of those completion dates. And when we come back next time, which will be in July, hopefully we'll have updated responses in relation to those. Okay?
Thank you. Can I just comment a minute, Chair? I think that's really helpful, Paul. Thanks very much. I think when I was looking at it, particularly in terms of the environment and public protection, whatever it was, I was thinking, gosh, we're a third of the way through the financial year that we're monitoring. So that's why I think it's really important. And often there's good reasons why, a deadline is further into the future. Because knowing those reasons actually helps, doesn't it? I think it's making sure we get the information. This has taken 2 years because. And if we don't know that, you look at something, you think, 2 years ahead? For goodness sake, let's get on with it. So that's my point. That's a really constructive response. Thank you. Thank you.
Gareth, Bethan's got her hand up.
Thank you, Bethan.
Yeah, just on that point as well, I appreciate everything Paul has said, and I'm wondering on a little bit of self-reflection for us, Chair, whether there's a role for us too, that when we have the responses for the recommendations, if the timeframes are quite long, but we find them acceptable from an audit practice perspective, maybe it's something for us to reflect on as well about ensuring that there is a bit of an explanation within those responses and pushing for why it's longer to be a bit more transparent. So I think that's something for us to take away and think about as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Beth. And I think in another council where I sit, we've reflected exactly the same, where there's a very long stop date. Clearly, there's an action plan behind it to get to that date. And actually, it's knowing what the key milestones are, because 3 years hence is a long time, but there is a reason behind it, and I think it's that reasoning we need to understand, which is what the crux of Norma's questioning was really. So thank you for that. Are there any other comments? If there are none, the recommendation is that I think we note the contents of the report, and officers note the comments made in regards to the report, and we await a report for, I think it's July, you said, on an update, Paul?
That is correct, Chair, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Don. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Ray. No, thank you, Jason. Anyone against? Nope, thank you. Next report is the panel performance paper.
Evening, Chair. It's Rhys.
Hi, Rhys.
I noticed Tracy was reaching for a microphone then, but as I've done the training session today, I thought I'll take the very brief paper. So, obviously, most committee members are aware, because we've had a training session on this subject before committee. As part of the Local Government Elections Act, the local authority is required to participate in a panel peer assessment within an electoral cycle, so before May 27. So this is to give notification to the committee around the arrangements around that and the timescales associated with it. The peer panel assessment is an assessment that the local authority arranges through WLGA with an independent chair and a panel made up of an elected representative from another local authority, a serving senior officer, so either a chief executive or director, somebody from the private or public or voluntary sector, and any other representatives we might want to have in that in order to give us a rounded assessment. And what it's aiming to do is to look at how we discharging our duties, exercising our functions effectively, using our resources economically, efficiently and effectively, and ensuring that we've got appropriate governance arrangements in place to ensure that we achieve those aims. And we're also able to add in a couple of additional themes about things that are important to the local authority. So our assessment will be being undertaken on the week commencing the 2nd of March. Actually, we'll begin on the 3rd of March. For that week, we'll have informal feedback by the end of that week. We'll have a draft report, and once we finalise that report, we will then we'll have a series of recommendations which we will have to respond to. Those draft responses will come to the committee for comment and any recommendations for change prior to them going to Cabinet and then on to Council. And once that's done, our report will be published. It will be sent to Welsh Government and regulatory bodies and then published on our website. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Rhys. Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone?
There's no questions, Gareth.
No? Thank you. Any comments? No, I've only got a comment. Can I just say again, thank you in public, Rhys, for the presentation, and obviously thank you for the report, and thank Tracy and Paul in assisting you in delivering it. So thank you very much. So if we go to the recommendation, I think the recommendation is that we note the contents of the report in relation to the Council's panel performance assessment. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Jason. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Corporate Risk Register Q2. And I think we need to remember this is Q2. It was delayed, I believe, from November. So, Tracy, is this you or Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'll start. And as you rightly say, and I was going to point that out, this is a November position, so it is rather sort of out of time. We will be coming back at the next meeting with the Q3 report, so the committee may want to sort of hold some of those questions until that time. That said, this is the position as at the end of September, the end of Q2. The risk report is also reported to Cabinet, so this one has actually gone to Cabinet. And Governance and Audit Committee's role is about being assured of the risk processes. So at the end of Q2, there were 13 risks recorded in the Corporate Risk Register. That's attached to the report. 6 major risks that are outlined in the report, and there were no major changes compared to Q1. So I don't know whether the committee want to ask any questions about this report or wait till next time to get an updated picture. You're on mute, Chair.
Gareth, you're on mute.
Yeah, just to say thank you for that, Tracy. Unless any members got any burning questions, obviously we're now sort of 2 months on, nearly 3 months on from the last Q2 report. I'm happy for people to pose those questions, but the one in March will give us the most up-to-date position in any event. But are there any questions? Norma?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether you call it a burning question, but I think I've got one quite important one, I think. It was in relation to housing, but first of all, I probably say this at every meeting, but I really like reading the risk register. It's just so clear, and, you know, it gives us a really good feel of how things are being managed. So, on housing, we know there's huge problems in this area, and I think we've got relative confidence in terms of the way things are going and the direction of travel. But I was just wondering whether or not we've got confidence that the actions will lead to the desired impact by March 27, bearing in mind there's a huge agenda there, and I think it'd be quite useful for us as a committee to have that assurance, because when you look at what needs to be done, you think, gosh, this is only a year away. So that was my burning question. And the other one, really, I didn't know what the project asset programme was and when it's likely to be completed. I don't know whether that's come to us at all. It's something I wasn't aware of, or I might have forgotten.
Tracy? Sorry,
Chair, I think I can possibly cover both of those. I'll do the assets one first of all. So we have obviously a whole series of transformation pieces of work. They wouldn't necessarily come to Governance and Audit Committee. They go through our service plans that go through scrutiny arrangements, asset rationalisation, stroke optimisation, because it has changed over time. Is one of those pieces of work. So it's part of its reason we have it is to try and mitigate the risk we have around the estate, because obviously the fewer parts of the estate we have, the easier it is to maintain the things that we have left. So that's what it is. Just pick up on the housing one and just about assurance. Obviously, we were picking this up as part of the budget set in process for 26-27. So in the draft budget, there's significant investment in housing and homelessness services in order to help mitigate these risks. And also transformation work in place with the head of housing and communities in order to ensure that he can get ahead of the curve with those issues around budgets. So that is all being monitored. So obviously, budget will be agreed by Council on the 24th of February. So, watch this space for that. So by the time we have the next committee meeting, that would have been agreed or not. So we'll know what the investment is. And David Walton, who's the head of service, has got a comprehensive programme in place that has backing from our exec and cabinet members in order to mitigate this. So there's a high level of confidence that the actions will be undertaken and will have an impact. However, and this is my caveat on it for the committee, the however is, this is an increasing issue for the area. Our population continues to grow. I think last year we had the highest percentage increase in private sector housing costs in the UK. It is a burning issue, but what we've got a big programme in place and a plan in place in order to get ahead of that curve.
Thank you, Rhys. That's really helpful, and I do understand the challenges, and that was my concern, really, knowing you've got particular challenges in Newport, but having confidence that there is a good programme in place. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Norma. And one thing I'd say about the assets and the rationalisation. I was waiting for Tracy to jump in because I believe this is within her remit, and we've had this discussion before that there was a programme ongoing and it was being looked at. So I'll leave that there. Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just it might be a little bit of a comment, I think, or just a look at this, because I've looked at the infrastructure on our infrastructure, like was this, there's £118 million and £50 million to require to bring those city carriageways up to a serviceable condition. As you know, as the weather's been changing now at the moment over the last few months, and the amount of potholes now has actually occurred in Newport now, it looks more like craters and not potholes, I think, But it'll just be a look at see what the cost is going to cost us in Q3 of how much needs to be done on our carriageways, I think. This is a bit of a comment or something.
Thank you for that, Jason. I'm sure that will be picked up as part of the feedback. Is there any other comment? Any other questions? Any comments? If there aren't any, the recommendation is that we note the contents of the report. and I think we await the Q3 report in March 2026. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you. Seconder, thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you. The next item is the work programme.
Hi, Committee. Yeah, it's just to confirm that we've got training before the March meeting. It's on the swap audit system. The training will be at 3:15 because it potentially might go on between an hour and an hour and a half. And then shortly you should be getting all the meeting invites for the prior year for 2026-27 because we've just been agreed by Council.
Okay, if there's any questions on the work programme? No. Any comments? No. Okay, so we endorse the proposed schedule for future meetings. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you. Seconder, thank you. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you. And that concludes the meeting. So can I just